Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Welcome back to the channel. This is Life in Denver. I'm Joe. This is my business partner, Monique. Today we're gonna be covering for you guys everything to know in terms of living in Denver, the city, versus the suburbs of Denver, because there's obviously big pros and cons to both. And surprisingly, what you tend to find is not everyone ends up in Denver. This is the Life in Denver channel. However, a ton of our clients and a ton of people we talk to end up being in the suburbs. So we'll get into all that. But with that being said, just wanted to give you a little idea of what we're gonna look over today, and let's jump into it. All right, guys, so jumping into things, in terms of price point here, what you tend to find in a lot of metros, I feel like, is you see a big premium placed on the actual city and the city living as opposed to the surrounding suburbs. It's actually not the case here in Denver. Not to say that it's, cheap by any means. Like, it is a pricier place to live, but overall what you'll find is, the city and the suburb tend to reflect a similar price point depending on the suburb, of course. So if you're going to go way out by the airport, that of course will be cheaper than, downtown Denver. But as far as if you compare like a western suburb to Denver itself, very, one-to-one in the pricing. So it's going to be similar. However, that's not a bad thing just because it gives you optionality across the board. So if you're someone who really is diehard, I want to be in the city, don't feel like it's going to break the bank, because if you go to like a New York or a Boston, etc., all these other cities, sometimes you're just priced out of the city, so you end up having to be in a suburb. It's not the case here. Denver's actually still fairly reasonable as a city.
And one of the unique things too about Denver is you do have easy access to the suburbs. So it's not like you're commuting an hour and a half to get to the suburbs. There's some suburbs that are within 30, 20 minutes, depending on traffic. Yeah. And depending on the suburb, you decide to live in, whether it's Lakewood, whether you decide to live, South Highlands Ranch, depending on, the type of suburb you're looking to live in, you definitely are still within the bounds of the Denver Metro. So not like you're going all the way to Kansas or anything like that. So definitely worthwhile in terms of calling out, because, hey, maybe you want to move to Denver, but you like the amenities that come with living in the suburbs, or you like the schools that come with living in the suburbs, then you have an option, even if you do have to commute to downtown for your work. Or if you're like Joe, you can work 100% all the time and just not worry so much about
work in the state park like this.
Exactly, you're driving everywhere anyways, so definitely a good option for you if you are looking to move to Denver.
Yeah, great call out on the commute piece, because I feel like that's a big concern for people in most metros. Like, they're thinking, okay, I work in the city, I have to live X amount of a radius within that area, right, just because it's going to be such a nightmare commute from whatever suburb. That's really not the case. Like, Denver as a whole definitely still has a ton of room to run in terms of growth, in terms of population and all of that. Like, you definitely can still navigate from the majority, pretty much all suburbs, into downtown Denver. It's just depending on what your tolerance is, whether you can tolerate a 20-minute drive, a 40-minute drive, whatever. But everything easily within 45 minutes, I would say, unless there's like some big anomaly where there's a big snowstorm or whatever. So don't feel like the suburbs are going to be unrealistic for you. If you do have to work in the city, you definitely have either option 100%. All right, guys, so we're talking commute, we're talking navigating the metro. The next thing to consider, obviously, is the house, because, of course, location is important. You have to consider where you want to live. That's one thing you can't change. However, you do have a lot of different options, whether it's in the city, whether it's in the suburb, in terms of housing style. So the city in general tends to be a lot of mid-1900s style homes, whether that's a ranch, whether it's a bungalow style home, etc. Overall, just older homes, right? And you see some of those have now been, updated with some modern amenities, they've been scraped, etc. And some have been left, to preserve the cool historic feel that they have. So if you like that historic style home, definitely an option for you guys. If you want a scraped but still historic home, you can find that in the city as well. The city, for the most part, though, they sit on smaller lots, obviously just being a city, of course. So you find, 5,000-6,000 square foot lots for the most part. Not to say certain portions of the city won't offer more, but that's kind of the general rule of thumb of what you're going to find. However, being in the suburbs, you then branch out much more so. So whether it's that western side, like a Golden or a Morrison, like we call out, you can find acre plus lots out there truly in the mountains. Or if you want more of a new build style home, right? The eastern side and portions and pockets of the west side offer that as well. But the eastern side really is heavy on that new build, because we've talked about how this whole metro still has a ton of room for development and growth, and Aurora specifically has a ton of that. So you probably have, double digits amounts of new build communities out there. And what's really cool about those are they've really thought through what was lacking in some of the older style homes, whether it's, walking trails and a lot of nice amenities in that community, whether that's high vaulted ceilings because people don't like the low ceilings of older homes. Maybe they have washer dryer upstairs. You don't have to lug laundry from the basement. A number of just big wins and things they've thought through that was maybe lacking in some of the older homes that they've now considered in some of these newer homes. So pros and cons to both areas. It's just depending on what your needs are, what your preferences are. Some people, like the newer homes. Some people like the older homes. So whatever it is for you.
All right, and since Joe was so good at talking about, living...
A compliment, wow.
There you go.
Take
I know,
it.
first, there you go. One of the big things I do want to call out about living in the city is the parking situation. So depending on where you are in the city, you may or may not have a driveway, or you may or may not have garage space. So that's one of the big important things to call out, because most of the new build communities that Joe did talk about actually offer garage spaces and nice, big open terms of access for vehicles and parking. However, that's not the case downtown. Downtown, like Joe was saying, has been established. Even in, Metro Denver in general, you can struggle finding parking. Specifically, if you are, aware that Denver is huge on their fans in terms of the Broncos, the Nuggets. We do have all major sports teams here, and Denverites do tend to have, big spirit in terms of supporting their local teams. So if there's a game, even though
not a lot of parking a lot of the time too. So that's what ends up being an issue is the parking can end up in not your front yard, but on the street in front of your front yard, right? So that can suck up some of that street parking if that's something you are relying on. But go ahead, Monique, I'll let you take it back.
Thank you. Now, definitely, if you are living, near the stadium, or if you're living, near ballpark downtown, definitely parking's going to be an issue. A lot of times people like to park their cars and walk to the games. You don't always find people who are willing to pay $40-$60 to pay for parking.
Yeah, they get you good by those parking.
They get you good, yeah, definitely. So definitely something to call out in terms of if you have a big family, or you're planning an event, or you have a lot of cars, you might want to consider living not necessarily in Denver, but you might want to consider the suburbs. But definitely something worth calling out.
Yeah, definitely. So being in the city, of course, it is busier. Parking is a little more tricky. You do have good proximity though to all these events. So depending on what part of the city you're in, you might even be able to walk from your house to a sporting event. So that could be a big win. So if you can live with that parking situation, and some people popping their cars in front, hey, not the worst thing in the world. However, one thing to call out from the suburb side is a lot of the suburbs, and again, this is something we'll look out for you guys because we are licensed realtors, of course, as a quick little reminder. So we'll consider this depending on your needs. A lot of these suburbs offer the light rail station. And so that's a nice little train that will take you from the suburbs right into downtown. You're not worried about parking. You're not worried about, hey, I had a few drinks, now I got to go home, right? It makes life so much easier. So that's expanding out. It's not in every suburb, but it's in a lot of them. So again, something we'll look out for if you're a big sports fan, but just something to call out. You can navigate to the city, whether it is you live downtown, whether it is you live in a suburb and enjoy all the sporting events, just depending on how much, time and commute you're willing to put in.
And per usual, I'm going to talk about the schools. So one of the biggest things that happens in other major cities is you do have, different various schooling systems if you are looking within the city versus the suburbs. Here in Denver, you do have Denver Public Schools if you are located within the city, depending on which pocket you're located in. Also, if you are moving to the suburbs, you do have different access to schools, whether it's like Douglas County School District, Littleton School District, you have Cherry Creek School District, definitely different options in terms of schools. And also, if you are thinking, depending on how old your child is, if you want to send them, to some private schools, there's also options for that in either the suburbs or in Denver. So you're definitely not tied to one within your district. Just make sure you do that research if you are looking to move to a place that offers, good schools.
Yeah, Colorado puts a ton of emphasis on schools. Schools are a really big deal out here, and that's actually why you tend to see a lot of people, like the majority of people even know, they actually end up landing in the suburbs as opposed to the city, just because schools are important. Everyone's trying to raise a family, and of course, a lot of the suburbs do have those stronger school systems. So that's it's something to consider overall. However, not to say that there's not a time and place to go live in the city too, because the city is great for a lot of young professionals. Maybe you're at that point in life where you don't have kids yet, right? And you want to go enjoy nightlife. Of course, nightlife in the city is going to be stronger than in most of the suburbs. So if that's important to you, if, great restaurants and dining out and all that is important to you, maybe the city is for you, right? Not to say that, there's anything wrong with DPS schools or something like that, but more so just if you're at a stage in life where maybe going out and enjoying yourself and not worrying about the children yet is more for you, maybe the city is your choice. And again, you probably don't need as much room or as much space because you don't need all these extra bedrooms. So again, there's a time and place for all the different areas to live around here. It just depends on your personal needs and everything. All right, guys, so one thing to call out for you guys, whether it's the city or the suburbs, is this being Colorado, of course, you do just have great access to all the outdoor activities and just nature and parks and all that fun stuff. Denver has a ton of just big areas, whether it's Washington Park, whether it's Sloan's Lake, ton of great areas.
Park too.
Yeah.
Right downtown, if you go, you can go along the Platte River, and definitely options if you're into cycling and being at the park. Confluence Park connects kind of everything near like an REI and in the heart of downtown. So really good at incorporating outdoor activities within the city as well.
That's how we stay warm on these cold days. We go for a little cycle after. That's what we're doing after this. But no, in all reality, there's just a ton of fun parks to enjoy out here because Denver is very into nature. They're very into preserving that nature too. So although you see apartment buildings coming up, although you see, homes being developed and whatnot, they are very, very good about their zoning and allowing to make sure that all of this stuff that makes Denver Denver stays the way it is. So really, you can't go wrong, whether it's the city, whether it's of course the suburbs have a ton of outdoor activities as well, you're going to enjoy it no matter where you're at. So Colorado as a whole is just very into that, very into our fitness, very into our outdoors. So no matter where you pick, you can't go wrong across the board on that point.
Guys, and as much as Joe and I love making these videos for you, we would love to help with any real estate needs you may have. Please feel free to contact us at the information that's on your screen. We are the ones that answer the call, text, emails. So please feel free to reach out, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. We are going to go warm up, and we'll catch you in the next one.